Okay, so good morning, boys and girls. So as you're walking into class, I have your warm up on the overhead. So I want you to be thinking about an experience that you have had where you learned something or that it changed you in some way. So for an example, my freshman year in college, I had a roommate. Me and my roommate were very close, and she would always help me study and prepare for big tests and quizzes. And through this, I actually learned the true meaning of what friendship was. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and I want you to write down an experience that you have had that has shaped you and changed you in some way. So I'll give them like 5 minutes to do this warm up. After they're done, I'm going to allow my students to share out. That's if they want to share out. And I'll tell them how this warm up relates to what we'll be learning about today, in which we'll be learning about themes. So the objectives will be, my students will be able to define themes. They'll also be able to identify themes in stories, and they'll learn the importance of theme. So class, what is theme? I want you to all pull out your reading notebooks, and I want you to make a section in your book, and I want you to title it theme. I want you to make an inference of what you think theme will be. This will be your initial definition before actually finding out what theme is. I'll give you about 1 minute to just write down what you think theme is. There's no right or wrong answer because, of course, you don't know what theme is yet. When my students are done with this, I will pull up a YouTube video, and it's only like a 1 minute clip. As my students are watching, they'll have to take notes in their reading notebooks, and they have to jot down what they see, but also writing down a second definition after the video is done, after actually finding out what theme is. I'll then define what theme is. So the theme of a story is what the author is trying to convey. In other words, the central idea of the story. So short stories, they really just have one theme, whereas bigger books, they usually have multiple themes. Like in the video that I just showed, it referenced Romeo and Juliet, and it talked about what the theme of that story was, but also that there were other themes within that story. So the theme of the story is moving through the story, the characters' actions, interactions, and motivations, which all reflect and contribute to what the actual story theme is. So the theme is an underlying message or the big idea of a story. This message could tell more about human nature or life in general. And theme is really important because you can actually learn from a theme and you can apply what you learned to real life situations. So what I'm going to show you are a few examples to actually help you think more into theme and just having actual examples of theme. So the first example I'm going to talk about is honesty. So honesty can be a theme, and it's when a character has to tell the truth even when faced with those negative consequences. Friendship, well, the example I talked to you about earlier where my roommate would help me out studying and with quizzes and before big tests, I actually got to learn what true friendship was, in which that is a theme. So friendship is when the characters form friendships and bonds despite having different characteristics. There can also be themes such as being courageous, where the characters brave and they face their fears. Also, it can be good and evil, family, or person versus nature. So out of all these themes, does anybody notice any themes that may contribute to any books that we have read throughout the whole semester? And if you do, somebody just raise their hand. I know that, like I said earlier, friendship was in my example. So do you see any theme examples that may relate to your warm-up stories as well? So I have students just kind of like volunteer. After we get done with that, then I'll ask my students, what do you think the theme was in The Little Mermaid? So they'll make a guess using Jamboard. And then I'll actually have to reread the story to the students again just to refresh their brains. After we get done reading The Little Mermaid, well, then I'll give them a theme and support chart. So I'll write down, they'll have to write down 4 themes, but I actually give them 2 of the themes throughout the story, but it's on them to come up with the supporting evidence. And they have to write down the page numbers and how that they found that theme and what relates to that theme. So then they'll have to fill in number 3 and 4, and then they'll have to share out why they thought that was a theme. So I'll then go in to define what the main theme was throughout the story, in which it was unconditional love. Because there was no denying the Little Mermaid, her love for the prince. She was literally willing to give up her voice in exchange for a pair of legs just so she would be able to walk on land and be with the prince, knowing that every time she walked, she would literally be feeling like she is walking on knives. So if this is unconditional love, then I don't know what it is. So then I'll give the students their chance to come up with their own theme story, especially after we just talked about themes. We watched the video. We had theme examples. They talked about books they've read and themes, examples that relate to that. And then we also talked about the themes that are within the Little Mermaid. So this is giving them a chance to come up with their creativity and show their own theme. So they were actually creating a book foldable. They have to come up with at least one or two characters, be able to write a story, and also have a title. So I thought that would be fun for the students to do. And they'll be using this character worksheet to come up with their own character. In the end, they'll also be doing a theme poster group activity. So they have to choose from the three main characters, which is April, Ursula, and the Prince. And once they get to their group, somebody will have to decide who will be the captain. They have to come up with the group name, and as well as coming up with their own posters. Students love drawing, and I thought this was really creative for them to do. And they'll just use any references or any notes that they learned with the class to also help them with this. And they'll have to, for example, if they chose Ariel, they'll have to write down a theme that Ariel presented throughout the story. And the top three groups, 3 out of 6 groups, they get to have their art displayed on the art wall. So I think that would be fun for students. And in the closing, I have them to pair with their table peers, and they'll be answering these 2 questions. So, why is it important to understand the theme of the story? And also, how does the theme reflect the author's beliefs? So, I'll give them about 3 to 4 minutes to talk with their table peers, and then we'll come back together and discuss collectively. And I'll open up a big discussion as a class because discussions it helps students to work on their collaborative skills, their social skills, but also is helping them to practice talking in front of others. And so this is my lesson.
That was good. I really like the lesson. Varying from your startup warm up activity to your closing. I really like that, especially with the warm up having the students kind of, before they end up learning about theme, they are kind of having an idea of, oh, what is theme? They're using their own language to try and make up what they think theme is before they actually learn what it is. So I feel like that's real helpful in developing an understanding, especially if you have a video that's helping them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Dion, I think it was really good as well. Like, it was very engaged. I feel like I was really sitting down in the classroom learning. So I think it was really good. If I were you, I would probably turn that in too.